Matthew, and the parallel passage is Mark 7. And we talked about how the chief priests or the Pharisees and teachers of the law came from Jerusalem to Gennesaret, and they asked Jesus regarding why the disciples eat with their hands unwashed. So we told about how they made us, they depended on human laws so much that they didn't care about God's laws. And Jesus calls them hypocrites. And then Jesus tells the crowd something which they should understand. What does Jesus say? What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but what comes out of their mouth, that is what defiles them. Now, Peter and others didn't understand what this meant. Okay, he didn't understand what it meant. And Jesus had to clarify that. Okay, what comes out of a person's mouth? What does come out of a person's mouth? Before we go there, we should look at the food that happens. What happens to the food that someone eats? See, Mark 7 verse 18 and 19 says, "Are you so dull?" He asked. "Don't you see that nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile them? For it doesn't go into the heart, but into the stomach and then out of the body." So, the food you eat does not affect your behavior. Understood? The food you eat does not affect the behavior. If behavior was regulated by food, then people who eat vegetarians should be the calmest persons in the world. Correct? Huh? You do not understand. If food is the reason for someone else's bad behavior, I mean, if you're eating non-veg, and if that is causing you to be aggressive and angry and all that, then people who eat only vegetarian food should not be angry, should not be sinning. Correct? What does food do? It enters the stomach, goes out of the body. That's all, right? Nothing else happens to it. And in saying like that, you see in Mark 7 verse 19, the last part, in saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. That sentence is not there in Matthew. Okay, that sentence is not there in Matthew. Jesus declared all foods clean. Now, Mark is writing this to Gentile audiences, Greeks and the Romans. They eat a lot of things which the Jews don't eat. Understood? The Jews have a specific diet. What do you call that in a term? Okay, the Muslims have a diet which they call as halal. Yeah. So the same way the Jewish people had something what we call as kosher. Just like Muslims have halal, they had kosher. Kosher means something that is permitted, allowed. Okay. The Romans and the Greeks used to eat things which were not allowed for the Jews. Now the problem is not the food. See, you must understand one thing here. The law regarding food was given to Israelites only after they came out of Egypt. Before that, from the flood till the time of Israelites coming out of Egypt, they ate anything. Did you understand? They could eat anything. There was no sin in that. So God didn't change his attitude on food. Why did he give? Okay, let me just ask you this. Why did God give that set of rules for food regarding Israel? It's not because the food was bad. Just because God was holy and different. What is the opposite of holy? Huh? What is the opposite of holy? Common. Don't forget that. Common means something that is used for anything and everything. Holy means something that is used for only a specific purpose. Different. So just like God is different from the Canaanites and every other religion, God's people should be different. And that difference must be seen in how they eat, what they eat, um, the farming, everything. So it's not the food that is a problem. Their way of separating from others. So the food is not a problem. Did you understand? So the Greeks and the Romans who are reading Mark, they shouldn't think that for them to be Christians, they have to eat like Jews. Did you understand? They should think that God, or they should understand that God doesn't look at what they eat ultimately. What their heart is all about is what matters. That's all what God cares. What your heart is all about, that's what God cares. So, in declaring all foods clean, the Romans and the Greeks didn't have to worry about switching the diet and becoming like the Jews and then becoming Christians. They could become Christians within the culture that they lived in. Like, for example, a Hindu, when he becomes a Christian, he doesn't have to turn into a non-veg just like that. Because we eat both vegetables and non-vegetarian food. That's normal Christians doing that, right? So, a Hindu who became a Christian need not change into non-veg to become a Christian. He can still be a vegetarian and still be a Christian because food doesn't matter. All foods are clean in God's sight. And so, if someone says today, don't eat this, don't eat that for religious purposes, that is a demonic teaching. It's not coming from God, it's coming from Satan. Now, they misuse the purpose that God had when He told the Israelites not to eat that. That had a specific purpose which doesn't apply to us today. Understood? So, the food is not a problem, the heart is the problem. What goes into the body doesn't defile a man. What comes out of the body comes from the heart. And what comes from the heart? So let's read Matthew 15, verse 19 and 20. 19 and 20. Yeah. Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. Mark 7, verse 21 and 22. Okay. All of these things come from a person's heart. So, it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter what you eat, it doesn't matter what language you speak. Every person has these things. This is what makes a person bad before God. So the Pharisees don't eat with unwashed hands, but their hearts are full of murderous intent, arrogance, pride. That's what defiled them. They pray three times a day. They fast 2 times a week, but heart is full of what? Arrogance. What so? That's what they should understand. Okay. Now Jesus says to them in chapter 15, verse 12 and 13. Do you know? The disciples ask him, do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this? He replied, every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be pulled out by the roots. Whoever does not have a relationship with God will have an eternal destruction. Leave them. It's not because Jesus is not burdened about them. Leave them because they are not interested in listening. They are blind guides. If the blind lead the blind, both will fall into a pit. Okay, that's the thing here. So the disciples are worried. You are fighting for us against them. Why? They are angry at you already. Because of this, they are more angry. You publicly call them hypocrites. They are more angry at you now. Jesus says, "Rainathoya, leave it. Vittuകള. You know, leave it. They are blind guides. Blind guides. A guide is supposed to be showing the way for others, right? Yeah. What if the guide is blind? He himself can't see and he misleads someone else. He will fall, he will take others also to fall with him. That's the problem with these guys. Guys who can't see their own faults will take others to where they go. If I can't see my own faults, where am I going to? Eternal destruction. And I will take somebody else also to eternal destruction. So that's what is happening in here. Okay. So, chapter 15, verse 1 to 20, you see the enmity or hostility of the Jewish leaders towards Jesus. And now, starting from 15, verse 21 till 39 of Matthew. Matthew 15, verse 21 to 39, and Mark 7, verse 24 to 13. Okay, Jesus is now in the Gentile area. He has gone to a Gentile area. So let's just look at. Okay, let's do one thing. Again, we will do some comparison work here. So the three of you, Tinto, Libin, and Badal, you three can look in Matthew. Matthew chapter 15, verse 21 to 28. And Galilean, Babylon, Pharos, and Rintu. Four of you can look at Mark 7, verse 24 to 30. Jesus healing the Canaanite woman's daughter. That's the passage. Alright? So, combining these two parts, we will reconstruct what is happening. So, Jesus left that place, Gennesaret, and went to which place? Tyre and Sidon. Matthew says Tyre and Sidon, and this is Tyre in Mark's Gospel. Do you have any understanding on what this place is? Where this place is? Huh? Is it a Gentile place or a Jewish place? Gentile place. Now, what is the significance about these two places, Tyre and Sidon? Hey, let's go to chapter 11 of Matthew. Matthew 11, verse 22. What do you read in there? Okay. Let's go to 21 and 21. Chorazin. Okay. So, this is about an Old Testament event. Do you know that Jezebel, have you heard about that name? Who is she? Ahab's wife. Jezebel comes from this area. Jezebel comes from Tyre and Sidon. So, there is so much of a history. I mean, Tyre and Sidon has so much of a history sinning against God and leading. Huh? Yeah. See, they have a history of sinning against God. These two cities. Okay. And it is to that place which Jesus goes with the work of God. So think about this. There is an Old Testament history where these places were instrumental in leading Israel to sin. So Jesus is not just going to the Israelites who sinned, He is also going to the people who made Israel sin in the Old Testament. Don't miss that out. Okay, don't miss that out, because we are reading uh, about somebody whose life is parallel to the Old Testament history, Jesus. So that connection should not be forgotten in here. Now, uh, Matthew, when he is describing the woman, what does he call a woman? Wait. Verse 22. A Canaanite woman. Whereas Mark 7, verse 26. What does it say? A Greek born in Syrian Phoenicia. Alright? Now, before he met the woman, he went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, but no one could keep it secret. So he is not an unknown person here. Well, how do I know that? Is this the first time? Is this the first time that Jesus goes there to Tyre and Sidon, or is he unknown to them? He is not unknown, right? He has gone there to this place earlier, or rather, people may have come from that place to Jesus earlier. I mean, if you look at chapter 4 of Matthew, verse 23 to 25, Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in the synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness among the people. News about him spread all over which place? Syria. What did we read now? Syrian Phoenicia. So, Jesus is not unknown in these places. He is well known. And people brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, even when those suffering severe pain, demon possessed, those having seizures, and the paralyzed, and he healed them. Large crowds from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and the region across the Jordan followed him. So, people from all over that locality are aware of who Jesus is. That's why in Tyre, when Jesus came, he could not be hidden. This is not the first time that they know him. They know him. Okay. And so, this woman comes here. So, have you noticed that Matthew records her as a Canaanite and Mark records her as a Syrian Phoenicia, a Greek born from Syrian Phoenicia. Why these two differences? Because for Matthew writes to whom? Israelites, right? For Israelites, anyone outside Israel is a Canaanite. It's like for any person in the North India, any person from the South is a Madrasi. Have you heard that? Madrasi? Yeah? Okay. For a person living in Tamil Nadu, anyone in Chennai is Madrasi. For anyone in South India, anyone from Tamil Nadu is Madrasi. But for a North Indian, anyone from the South is Madrasi. So, for North Indian, anyone who is from below Madhya Pradesh, they are all South Indians. Understood. So, in the same way, when Matthew is writing this to the Israelites don't care about where she is actually from. Understood. For the Israelites, she is an outsider. So, what is the point that Matthew tries to make? An outsider gets a welcome, not a specific area of people. An outsider of Israel gets the welcome from God. That's the point he's trying to make in here. Whereas in Mark's case, Mark is writing about that specific area. Well, to whom is Mark writing? To the Greeks and the Romans. And where is she from? She is a Greek. So look at the audience and think about it in that perspective. Since Mark is writing it to the Greeks, he writes about a woman who is from the Greeks and how she was welcomed by Jesus. Okay. So, what is her problem? Her little daughter was, yeah, oppressed by a demon. So her daughter is demon possessed, and she and is suffering terribly. That's what we read in Matthew 15 verse 22, and in Mark 7 verse 25, a little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit. And so this woman comes and falls at Jesus' feet and begs Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. Okay. How does she call Jesus? Lord, Son of David. So that's something really worth noticing. Okay. Uh, that Son of David thing is not there in Mark. It's not there in Mark, right? It's there in Matthew. Well, how does Matthew start? The genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of. Well, from whom does the genealogy in Matthew start? Yes, Abraham. The genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, son of Abraham. So the son of David title is not a casual title that she is talking about. So even a Gentile, okay, even a person who is not from Israel admits the fact that Jesus is king. So anyone who is any Israelite who is reading this, okay, any Israelite who is reading this, they should have a reality check, because the Israelites were the ones who handed over Jesus to be crucified, right? Well, when they handed Jesus over to be crucified, what did they say? When Pilate asked them, "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked them, right? What did the Jews say? Okay, let's turn to John 18. Okay, John 18. Okay, sorry, not John 18. John, I think it's 19. Let me just give you. 19, yes, 19 verse 15. Shall I crucify your king? We have no king but Caesar. So the Israelites who crucified Jesus have denied the king, Jesus. And they said, Caesar is our king. Augustus Tiberius Caesar is their king. The Roman people are their kings. But Matthew, when he writes to the Jews, he tells, see, you guys wanted to call a Gentile a king. But a Gentile is calling Jesus the king. To be the son of David means to be the king. Where is he who is born the king of the Jews? That's what the wise men came and asked, right? So the kingship of Jesus is a very key thing in that term, son of David. Not just a common word here. All right. So the Jews who handed over Jesus to be crucified wanted wanted to call a Gentile their king, but a Gentile is calling a Hebrew person her king. This is what they should understand. If the Gentile can call, you should call. So that's the thing which he is wanting to communicate. Lord, son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon possessed and is suffering terribly. Now, let's try to reconstruct what is happening in here. When Jesus heard this, did Jesus immediately uh, heal? No, Jesus did not answer a word. So, I mean, do you think it's rude? I mean, somebody is so desperate and coming for a healing and he's not answering anything. How rude is he? Right? That's something which we all often think about. And this is not the first time that such a thing has happened. In chapter 8 Sorry, in chapter 9 of Matthew, two blind men followed him. Yeah, they told, "Have mercy on us, son of David." And he went indoors. So, yeah. So he went indoors, and people think, "Oh, what a rude action that is." Right? Yeah. So, even now we might think Jesus goes to a foreign area, and uh, a woman comes there asking him to help her in healing the daughter, and Jesus doesn't answer a word. Again, how rude is he? And so the disciples. So when Jesus didn't answer, the woman went to the disciples and cried out after them also. And since Jesus is not interested in this case, why would the disciples want? That is why they told Jesus, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." So she is persistent. She doesn't want to leave her request. So when Jesus doesn't answer, she calls or asks the disciples. And then Jesus says, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." Okay, so we might think Jesus is going to Jesus was in the Israelite area. He goes to a Gentile area, and then he tells there, "I was sent to Israel." Then why did he go there? We might think like this. All right. So why is he saying this? When she says or calls him son of David, she must know that the promises of the Messiah was primarily given to whom? To the Jews. So all promises belong to them, right? The after effects of that promise comes to the Gentiles. So Jesus wants her to understand, you calling me son of David, yeah, it's good. But you should understand that in the Old Testament, whatever you are calling me, okay, that son of David thing is promised primarily to Israel. To whom did God promise that David will not have any shortage of descendants? To the Israel kingdom, right? So every promise of a Messiah was given to the Jews. And so when the Messiah comes, he should come to the Jews first. So they have a special place. Even if throughout the book of Matthew, there is an ongoing rejection of Jesus. Okay, throughout the book, um, Jesus' own hometown rejects him, family rejects him, the religious leaders reject him, and now a rejection has also happened. Okay, when the old and the new collide, the new is hated by the old. So because of this hatred, Jesus goes to the Gentile areas, but the Gentiles should understand that Jews still have a prominent place in God's mind. So Gentiles shouldn't think, we have replaced the Jews. Did you understand? They should understand that even if the rejection has happened, Jesus' initial ministry or the first Christians will come from Jews. First Jews, then the Greeks. If you look at the book of Romans, there is one thing that Paul, gives us a pattern. Okay, I'll give you some verses. Okay, chapter 2 and verse 9. What do you read in there? Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that order is still there. if you're looking at that place, if it is judgment, first to the Jews, because the promises were given to them first, and then to the Gentiles. If it is blessings, again, first to the Jews, and then to the Gentiles. So this plan or program of God is not compromised. And this Canaanite woman, the Syrophoenician woman, is made to understand that Jesus is still having something to do in Israel. It's not that he is jobless. Every door is closed, and that is why he is coming here. That's not how it is. Yeah, and he's not being rude to them also, because Ezekiel 34, the promise of the shepherd is given to the Israelites. Correct? Jesus is the son of David, and he is their king, and he is their king. He will be known as the descendant of David forever. So he always will have that Jewish identity. Understood? Okay. So I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. So he is not being rude to her and trying to reject her, but rather he is making her understand that in the grand scheme of things, Israel has a special place in God's program, and you are only getting you're getting the benefits of that relationship. See, God chose Abraham and said to him, in you shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So God has a plan for the entire world, but the medium of that plan is through Israel. Understood? So what is the end plan? Jews and Gentiles together will be one as God's people. But the means through which God will do is Israel. So don't forget that. That's what he's trying to understand or make her understand in here. And then the woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me. So for the second time, she is kneeling. Her desperation. As in, she feels her daughter's need as her need. Okay, help me. She till was she often feels that way. And then what did he say to her next? It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Oh, again you might think she's being called a dog in here. That's insulting. That's what we might think. Okay. First, Jesus says in Mark 7:27, first let the children eat all they want. He told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. So, dogs were considered to be unclean in Israel. So, what is Jesus trying to say in here? It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. So, is he trying to call her a wild dog? Because the word in here for dog is for a pet dog. People have pet dogs, right? So it's not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. And by the way, when Jesus uses the word dog, there is also uh, a very important thing in there. In the Old Testament, there is this person named Caleb. Caleb. Okay. Caleb was one of the 12 spies. Okay. And do you know where Caleb was from? Do you know where Caleb was from? Hebron. Okay. Can you just turn with me to Joshua chapter 14 and verse 6. Jephunneh. Yeah, Kenizzite. Hmm. Okay. So, uh, Hebron, okay, according to verse 13 of the same chapter, Joshua blessed Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and gave him Hebron as his inheritance. So Hebron belonged to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, ever since, because he followed the Lord, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. Hebron used to be called Kiryat Arba after Arba, who was the greatest man of the among the Anakites. Then the land had rest from the war. Now, you look at one thing that is repeatedly saying in here, being said in here. Jephunneh the Kenizzite. Uh, Again, you go back to Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10 and verse. Okay, it's not in Genesis chapter 10. I'll give you the verse. Genesis chapter 15. 15, verse 18, 19, and 20, and 21. You see the word Kenizzites in there in verse 19? Yeah. So Kenizzites is within the land of the Canaanites. And it's from there that Caleb's father came into faith and joined Israel. So Caleb is basically a Canaanite. Abraham's family and the descendants of Israel, they're all, if you look at their roots, they're all Mesopotamians. Understood? They're all Mesopotamians. And joining to them is Caleb's father, who was from the Kenizzite group in Canaan. And the word Caleb also has the same word, a form of the same word is used for the word dog in Hebrew. Understood? The same form of the word in which you use the word Caleb is also used for the word dog in Hebrew. Kilib. Kilib. It's just the pronunciation that is different. The C, L, and B is the same. The name has Caleb. The word dog has the word Kilib. Alright? Now, Caleb, he gets the edge of the land of Israel as his inheritance. Oh, by the way, let's go back to Genesis 10, just so that you get a clarity of what I was going to say. This woman is from the area of Tyre and Sidon, right? And Matthew calls that woman a Canaanite, right? Okay. Why is that? Genesis 10, verse 15. That's the father of. That's why. So Sidon is at its root a Canaanite area, which is why Matthew calls her a Canaanite. Now Matthew is looking through the Genesis and the first 5 or 6 books of the Old Testament and then making history according to that in his Gospels. Which is why when Sidon and Tyre come there, this man, Matthew uses the word Canaanite there. So anyone who reads the word Canaanite has to come back to Genesis 10 verse 15. Because that's where their minds are supposed to go to. Yeah. Well, this is what you should think about. So Caleb and Kilib. So if Jesus was talking to her in Hebrew, it's not right for me for the children for try to take the children's bread and give it to the Kilib. So the Caleb reference is there. Okay. So she's also aware of the Old Testament thing. And what is happening? What did she say? Lord, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. So whatever the children don't want, it falls off the table and the dogs eat that. Well, that is what happened in Israel history also, right? Out of the 12 spies and the large majority of people, only 2 people above the age of 20 entered the land of Canaan, Caleb and Joshua. So their rejection became the reason for this guy's inheritance in the land of Canaan. Did you understand? So she is recollecting that thing as she's saying, yes, Lord, the dogs eat what is falling away from the table. Okay. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. So the children put it away and the dogs eat. So she understands her position as far as the Israelite country is concerned. And she understands that she is the recipient of Israel's rejection. She didn't deserve it. Israel rejected, and that is why she got it. So this is her humility. She doesn't go beyond what she is. She doesn't take pride. I got salvation. No, I received salvation. You see the difference? I got and I received. She received it because she understood who she was in the background of the Israelites and in the background of the Messiah. Alright? And then Jesus said, for such a reply you may go. The demon has left your daughter. So what is Jesus waiting for? He wanted her faith to be in the level that he wanted it to be. He didn't just simply give her a healing. So if she had to be healed, or if her daughter had to be healed with her coming and requesting, she had to be at a level that Jesus wanted her to be. And what is that? A humility regarding who she is, the right recognition of who Jesus is, and how she sees herself in connection to the Israelites. All these things have to come properly. That is what we must see in here. Alright? Jesus is not being rude. He is not ignoring her. Rather, he is building up her faith by making her continually ask. He is building up her faith. He is showing her who she is. He is showing her who he is. And then healing the daughter immediately. Alright, so we will look at this passage next. So Matthew 15 verse 28 is what we have stopped. And next time we will touch upon what is in 29 onwards. But in between that, there is one event which Mark records, which is added, which is not there in Matthew. Mark 7 verse 31 to 37, the healing of the deaf and mute man. Again, this happens in Decapolis. So we'll talk about this next time. Alright? So you can take 5 minutes to prepare for your bibliology class. I was going to say biology.